Neighborhoods, like people, carry the collective memory of all that came before. It's a thread that ties us to our past and connects us to our future.
Pray for us!
At the intersection of Haight and Ashbury, at the heart of one such neighborhood, you can see a community's rebirth and hear the echoes of a revolutionary past. The Haight Ashbury neighborhood has come to be defined by a single season, a single summer.
The Haight Ashbury, for so many different things, has served as a cauldron of ideas with, relatively limited reality base. So it was a place where young people came that were idealistic, evolved a value system that was different than the dominant culture and expressed those ideas.
Things felt imminently possible. And with the enthusiasm and error of the young, we thought that we were going to completely change the world. And we were half right.
There was one period where all of a sudden, it's about 2 weeks where just everything felt like magic. It was like magic. We could do no wrong. Everything was absolutely perfect, and you couldn't help but have your face would hurt from smiling so much. Everybody was so happy, which obviously that can't last.
When the record companies got involved and we realized that we had these opportunities to make these records for the first time. And I'm telling you, most of us had never even made anything, maybe than a little demo recording or something like that. But none of us had made albums, anything like that.
And it was very tolerant. It was very loose. It was very open. It was very artistic. It was also a rock and roll scene that was starting to happen, and the words were getting out via national media.
That's the way it was, We had gone through the whole Eisenhower thing and everything, and it was like, now we wanted it. We wanted all of it. Every goddamn thing you got,
And then it got to this place where, we were, if anything, too aware of that, and we were saying, I think in 2 years we can end the war in Vietnam. There'll be women's rights, there'll be gay rights, there'll be civil rights. We're going to make all these strides and cure all this stuff, and it's going to be, those problems are going to be over with. And then it took a lot longer to realize, no, those problems aren't going to be over with. They're always going to be here.
To understand what the Summer of Love was, is to see it not only as a counterculture movement, but as a grand social experiment. The experiment's hypothesis was simple. We can all live as one in a community of peace and love. So we were doing a lot of social, cultural research and development. A lot of stuff didn't work. A lot of stuff did.
We kind of saw ourselves as guinea pigs and then freaks, and then we had guys like Ken Kesey come in and say, hey, let's all take this together and play music and turn on these crazy lights and so on, that kind of thing.
You felt support. You felt that maybe you weren't as crazy as your retired Marine Corps Colonel uncle said you were, that there was something to what you were into and there was some value to it. And in that sense, the sense of community lifted everyone's spirits.
This community, this neighborhood, was the canvas for a historic burst of artistic expression and social change.
San Francisco's just been a city it's invited people to come in and participate in its kind of looseness. I mean, and the looseness, of course, goes to all sorts of other different things besides the arts and culture.
But I think what happened in the 60s really had a transformative impact on this neighborhood specifically, because somehow the fire that got lit then has continued to burn at a very steady pace throughout.
The hate would always smolder at that steady pace, heat rising to meet neighborhood challenges. The Summer of Love represented a flash fire, scorching the neighborhood in the process.
You got a lot of people who weren't into music going there. Runaways, teenage runaways, right? People with broken hearts. These people are not into anything. You know, you had people who just got out of San Quentin. You know, so pretty soon it wasn't a music scene anymore, because it was people looking like they were in bands, but they weren't in bands. And there was hundreds and thousands of them.
By the time that happened, it wasn't a summer of love. There were a lot of hard drugs. It was a summer of confusion and hard drugs and disillusionment in a way. So, you know, it was already gone. The summer of love had happened a long time, you know, a couple of years before, it seemed like.
The story of the Haight is unfinished, a continual work in progress. As the neighborhood struggles with its past and future identity, the current chapter being written is one of rebirth and redemption.
Yes, the hippies happened here, the Summer of Love happened here, but since then something really changed. And I think what's changed is that the community and the people who live here and people who continue to come to live here have really embraced that as kind of like a value, as a core value, to encourage this kind of very interesting meeting point and breeding ground for people with different points of view. I mean, this is, you know, as good as a truly pluralistic society gets.
It all started right here. This is everything that takes place, people protesting or opposing or whatever. It all started right here. Before the Haight Ashbury, it didn't exist. We didn't do it. Government said, we followed. And that was it. And it all started right here. And it'll be like this, especially here in San Francisco, for many, forever. It'll never change here.
You have to come here with the right frame of mind. If you come here looking for everything that was going on 40 years ago, you can't go back. Not going to happen. Doesn't mean you can't perpetuate what happened. I mean, the music thing is a universal elixir. Has always worked. That's what it's always been. People are looking for an escape, especially now.
You're never going to be able to go to a magical geography that's going to emblemize perfection. Can't do it. Doesn't work. So I don't care if the Haight Ashbury disappears. It was appropriate at the moment. There'll be some other place that's the perfect nexus of time and ideas and aspirations, you know? It'll show up.
When you move here, the second leading tourist attraction in San Francisco is Haight Ashbury for obvious reasons. I mean, it's the most romanticized and sensationalized decade of time known to man, and probably the best era of music in the history and annals of contemporary rock and roll. It's all right here. Unfortunately, the city doesn't put plaques out so everybody knows about it, so it takes historians or someone who's grown up with that to kind of perpetuate that whole ideology and music that defined an entire generation. So,
unlike the rock and roll that preceded it, the San Francisco sound of the 60s possessed an emphatic, percussive beat, a bass line that often determined the direction of a song, and dominant expanded roles for electric guitar and keyboard.
It's like the light bulb went off in their head that perhaps if we just add a little bass and drums and a little keyboard to some of the stuff we've already been doing, it might really catch on. It might be worth recording, and we might make a good recording and something people would really enjoy.
But what happened was that we discovered, hey, the dial goes to 10. What happens if we turn the dial to 10? What we discovered was it had an effect on the audience. The audience went like, whoa! So everything changed.
In that sense, the so-called San Francisco sound was all that had come before it.
And so what we did musically was kind of just a combination of R&B and some rock tunes and whatever possible jazz licks we could throw in, but in the spirit of playing jazz, so that we didn't play the same thing twice. We would just take a theme and improvise on it, and sometimes we'd play songs, you know, like 25, 30 minutes long.
But we were experimenting too. Nowadays they have it down, but if you play first, like we did today pretty much, you don't really have a chance to dial everything completely in. But you go with the spirit of it anyway. And that's mostly what it's about, is the spirit of it.
I really think rock and roll music is what did it. It took away inhibitions, set things in motion, dancing got more seductive, you know, it was sensual. You know, you could make records that made people do whatever you wanted to make them do. You know, whichever way you want them to go politically, you could actually affect the world.
Fear makes people follow, like off to war, ready or not, us and them. Don Eli, San Francisco.
Some of the artists, understandably frustrated with the civil rights struggle and the Vietnamese conflict, injected lyrics with direct calls for action.
All the young people wanted to come here to see what was going on with the music, especially. You know, and then the musicians had a responsibility once in a while to mention the way they felt about the situation in the world. And so we did, and sometimes get in trouble for it. So what?
The collective image that came out to the Midwest, to the heartland of America, of all of these combined things, was that the Bay Area had lost its mind. You know, it was really anti everything that America stood for. You know.
But in point of fact, there were lots of people that may have liked our political ideas, but they didn't like the way we looked. They didn't like the free sex, or they didn't like the use of drugs. They didn't like the way our children were kind of feral. And we lost access to those people.
That's when you realize the people in the middle of this country, they either didn't know who the fuck we were, or they threw shit at us. Because we were those lousy, you know, motherfuckers that didn't go fight in the war and this and that. And you know, after I came back from Vietnam, I didn't want to tell anybody that I was there.
Politics was not our main thing. We just wanted to play music and stay stoned. I think that was it. Marijuana and music. Enough food to get by on, and we're fine. Money, I don't care.
See, they were real scared of us because we didn't have money, but we had access to art and music without money. And that scared the hell out of them, you know what I mean? They created a whole world without any of us on our stupid trip, man. Uh-oh, you know?
It symbolizes something that is very threatening to the dominant culture. And that, it is what the right wing calls the culture war. And that culture war is still going on, except the stage is national.
One band epitomized the vibe of the neighborhood. They took their music seriously and their lives playfully. They were the Grateful Dead.
What I found from the band was this intense appreciation of all kinds of music and this intense kind of psychedelic reality that passion coupled with a discipline is going to take you somewhere.
The band took up residence 1 block south of the intersection of Haight and Ashbury, in an old Victorian at 710 Ashbury.
We were all thrown into a house together, and we're kind of joined at the hip, forced into it in a sense, you know. So being on this course towards musicianship and trying to build a following and trying to do all of that stuff and being in a vibrant community and everything like we were, it was easy to feel brotherhood and unity there, you know.
Abandoning largely acoustic beginnings, the Dead set out to create a distinct, electrified musical sound.
Remember, we were the creators of the music. We don't look upon it as something like an album cut or something fixed in stone. For us, it's living, it's plastic, it's vital, it's changeable. There's no such thing as an ultimate performance of the piece. Some of them, to be sure, might be better than others. But when I think of any of those pieces, Dark Star, St. Stephen, The 11, it's a piece that I can go out and play tomorrow, and it might be as good or better than any time before. It's a living thing. It's an organic entity.
Though record labels were eager to sign the Dead and other Bay Area bands, what to do with them was another matter.
My favorite part of that music was the sense that you could do anything. There wasn't somebody there to say, no, that's not commercial, that won't work. It has to fit in a 3.5-minute record.
Yeah, we were all just saying, isn't this amazing? Look at we're all these bands, and they all sound so completely different. And yet, here we all go to each other's gigs, and it was cool for a while.
I didn't really think at the time that my involvement in Big Brother and the Holding Company was any kind of pivotal point in musical history. It was just something that I did with a bunch of other guys and a girl. And it was fun, it was a gas to do this stuff, rehearsing, playing for people who danced. But the importance down the line, I didn't think about that.
Now, we never really thought about, well, we're going to be stars. I mean, our whole point was we can make enough money to pay our rent and be able to smoke pot. We'll be happy,
February 1st, 1967. The 5 bands of note that had come out of the Haight to that point posed for a picture in front of the Grateful Dead house, basking in each other's successes.
We really, for a moment there, were rock gods. We were paid extremely well, idolized, immortalized, and it's something that you don't know how you're going to handle something like that. You really don't.
Because you were in a band, you never had to pay for anything. You got all free drugs, free boot. You know what I mean? Anything you wanted was yours. It was like you were king or something. It was way over the top. Much more than it should have been.
LSD was a driving force of the neighborhood's emotional high, and the Haight embraced its mind-expanding possibilities.
Well, LSD is a very powerful drug. It produces visual alterations, not true hallucinations, but visual alterations.
That stuff will give you a lot of power, and what goes up must come down. So as high as you think you might get, you're going to come down here, and then you're going to be humble and say, whoa, wait a minute, I got to think that over. And so in the middle ground, you just start being more respectful of people. And, if you can get that far and have we were lucky in those days, Owsley made some pretty good stuff.
And you realize the kind of magical nature of things, the mystery behind the existence of the smallest speck of dust, and the interpenetration of inline and outline. If you didn't have that experience, everything was just a style.
What it was like everybody was, psychedelics set everybody free and woke a lot of people up totally.
The effects of the drug, with an altered perception of the senses, emotions, and awareness, was just the gateway the new generation of explorers was searching for.
It was the beginning of the end of the old ways and the beginning of new ways, There were some problems with it, of course, as we all discovered, that some people did take drugs and die, and go crazy.
For those who used LSD, it was considered to be something more than just a drug. Its use took on the aura of self-discovery.
Just life itself, it was a very introspective, looking deep inside, trying to, pretentious as that may sound now, we were young, but it was an experiment. It's one big experiment. I took a lot of LSD, and I definitely opened my mind and my heart and my eyes to things that I probably never would have. And now I think about LSD every time I see visions like that on the Natch, and on Natural. It's all there. You don't need to take the drugs, really. It's all there.
To me, the psychedelic influence of that time really allowed people to see that whatever paradigm they're living in isn't the only one. There's another way to look at something. There's always some other way to look at whatever is going on.
We were not dropping acid and tripping at the mall. We were really trying to understand something about the way the universe worked and then apply that to the world to make it better and fairer and more just for a lot more people. And I think that sometimes gets short shift.
Summer had officially arrived, and Scott McKenzie's song San Francisco broke the top 10 the same week. The hit played like a siren song to the lost youth who were coming to San Francisco in droves, without money, food, or a place to stay. But for many, none of that mattered.
To some degree, San Francisco has a place in the imagination, offers that hope to people all over the country, very similar to how America offers that hope to the rest of the world.
And people would come like hopeless drunks that, would come and they would just be uplifted, at least momentarily anyway.
Because everybody knew about the Summer of Love. I can remember, while it was going on, it was called the Summer of Love. So who planned this anyway? I never did find that out.
Even if they were inclined, city officials were ill-equipped to deal with such numbers converging on the Haight.
It was overloaded because people poured in to the Haight Ashbury neighborhood and to San Francisco, and they couldn't handle it. There was really no place for them to be.
They would see pictures of these kids sitting on doorsteps, looking for the cops and smoking a joint. It didn't matter what the caption you put underneath was. The kids saw that picture and they were gone. They were out there. And the city fathers were mouthing, and nobody was lifting a finger.
And then it exploded into the consciousness of the youth of America, and they wanted to come here and experience it. So there was this just chemical reaction, this explosion.
Time magazine's cover story on the hippies in the first week of July depicted the peaceful panhandle primitives as hollow-cheeked flower children, describing the scene as a Shangri-La a-go-go.
So all the kids in Illinois and Ohio and everywhere said, "Hey, let's go to San Francisco." And we were inviting them. We'd go play places. It was like Johnny Appleseed and go play and say, "You should come to San Francisco. It's really great out there."
But all of a sudden, San Francisco turns into like the mecca for every kid in the country to run away from home, because in the press you look at it and they paint you this, Wizard of Oz kind of land where, everything grows on trees and everybody gets stoned and you can screw as much as you want to and paint your face up, and you don't have to grow up, and you don't have to, have money. You can always just beg money, and that's cool. And, whatever you want to do is okay. So it was just flooded with people.
I actually tried to talk to some of the people that came in from the East Coast and the Midwest, and it was like, forget it. These people are not going to listen to me. And I would even tell them who I was. I'm from the band member of I love this band. And they were stoners for the most part, and they had been brainwashed by the media.
With the city making it clear to the Haight that they were on their own, one group was determined to help. They were activist theater performers expanding on the definition of performance. They called themselves the Diggers.
The Diggers were actually the cutting edge, the farthest push on the implications of what a counterculture could be. And for taking it out as far as we did, we received a lot of respect. We did everything for no money. We did everything anonymously, because we felt that if you were getting famous, that wasn't free.
The streets of the Haight would be the Diggers' stage, a stage without boundaries. Their first performance of street theater was the offering of free food in the Panhandle.
The Diggers were just one group that helped some of these people, and they did it in a different sort of way than some of the religious groups.
And the only thing we required was that to get the food, you step through a yellow frame made out of 2x4s, about 6 feet by 6 feet, and it was called the free frame of reference. And when you stepped on the other side, we gave you a little one about this big on a shoestring. It's called the free frame of reference. And we just invited you to look at the world as if it was free.
Those who remained still had yet to figure out what had just happened, but many knew what the next step had to be, a spiritual cleansing of the neighborhood, of the emblem of what had gone wrong in the experiment, the hippie. Mourners gathered at dawn for a somber funeral procession down Haight Street.
When I heard about the ceremonial funeral of the death of the hippie, my first thought was, it's about time. Your idea of what we're about is superficial. It really is not touching the basis. It's not catching the substance. And by doing this ceremonial funeral, it was like a rite of exorcism as much as anything else.
If you have a big parade in the street and everybody's carrying a coffin that says hippie, son of media, and it has dollar signs all over it, and everybody's playing penny whistles and holding up mirrors to the people in the crowd so that all you see is yourself when you look at it, anybody who reported that incident in the press, all they have to do is describe it. And anybody who's awake anywhere in the United States will read it and go, I get it. I know what's going on. I know what they're trying to say.
The hope was that by exposing this media invention, the neighborhood could return to its core beliefs. But it was too late. Too much had happened. It was all over. While the moment had passed for the Haight, the movement was still gaining steam in other parts of the country, culminating in 3 days of peace and music in upstate New York.
If Time magazine calls it the greatest peaceful event in the recorded history of all mankind, we're talking it was needed, you know?
Even 3,000 miles away, Woodstock had a strong Haight flavor. 1/3 of the performing bands had San Francisco ties.
Woodstock created the West Coast sound because when we made the deal with Bill Graham to bring his acts, that was it. And it so happened they happened to be great acts.
When I went to Woodstock, I thought, yeah, I really belong here. And everybody here that's here is really a friend of mine, you know. We're really having a good time. And there's a lot of us, you know. And nobody's going to fuck with us because there's so many of us.
The happening fed the hippie mystique, demonstrating that 500,000 can get together in nonviolence.
I think that was a real watershed moment, and that they were there not for any particular political reason, but that they were part of something that was a societal change. And I think that signified a major shift in American cultural, political, social landscaping that people could not deny. And that has probably survived to this day.
All the stuff that Woodstock is now completely normal. There's other things that people are shocked about now.
While Woodstock showcased the hippie community at its best, the discarded Haight Ashbury neighborhood descended to a darker level.
But walking down the street in '68 was a scary proposition. It was not. You can tell it was gone.
Kids kept flooding here, no matter what. They just kept coming, and then big city people came with dangerous drugs. This place was totally devoid of anybody with a name. By 1968, they were gone.
The scene got so bad in '69 when we were living, like I said, a half a block off of Haight Street. My wife got held up at knife point, and we said, "Fuck this, we're moving out. You know, we can't live here anymore."
Harder, more aggressive drugs like speed appeared. By decade's end, the Haight was under siege of a full-blown heroin epidemic.
But the pure, if you will, experimentation with LSD and maybe in mushrooms and other hallucinogens was not all that was going on here. I think there were some opportunistic people who came in and introduced hard drugs to a vulnerable community.
It was a crisis. We responded to a crisis. The crisis was large numbers of kids having bad trips, and it was just this, free love, drug, sex, and rock and roll. But there was a dark side to it.
Smith imagined a clinic of volunteers set up right in the heart of the Haight that could handle this crisis, providing a non-judgmental environment for this growing population. And it had to be free.
When we opened the Haight Ashbury free clinics, and there was a line of young people around the block. Never advertised, never existed. How in heaven's name did they find out about it? And we operated 24/7 throughout the whole Summer of Love. It was just amazing phenomenon.
No one was immune to the toll that hard drugs were taking. The cost to the musicians and to the residents of the Haight is still being felt.
And we did them a lot, and they served us well. They were an inspiration. We had a real good time with them, and then we didn't have a good time with them. They became, they started out as our servant, and they wound up becoming our master.
It was all sort of part of it somehow. I've lost some friends to overdosing on heroin, well, not these days, but back in those days. Some good friends, and many of them some of them had been wounded, perhaps early in their lives, and some maybe had a propensity towards. They experimented, and then it just got hooked, and that was that.
But yeah, I don't think the drugs were a detriment to the music scene and the art itself. I think the drugs might have been a detriment, as it always is, to the people who it's too dangerous for them to do it.
I think one of the things that I regret is how much great musical talent died in the 60s from drug overdoses. But could I have done anything about it? I don't think so, because there wasn't even a consciousness of recovery.
It was a wild lifestyle. And then I guess what happened was, like, Janice and Jimmy, and they got, hung up in the heavier drugs.
I don't know, if you're hooked, it isn't going to, somebody else overdose, and doesn't seem to scare you. I hope they did. That would be good. That would be something good that would come of it if somebody said, okay, I better not do that. So I hope that happened. That would be good. But, I just lost a friend, and it was awful.
San Francisco still has a vibrant music scene. It existed long before the Summer of Love and continues today.
Excuse me while I kiss the sky.
Well, there's a whole culture that surrounds the music. Absolutely Amoeba is one of the reasons that people come here, and the music scene. But I think there's a culture that has sprouted from that music moment that brings a lot of people here, or some people never left because of that.
There's still going to be the original magic and the stuff that went on here back then. If that didn't happen, this still wouldn't be going on. So
you can't say really there's a real predominant scene style. I think that's the thing, because there's a lot of bands that, of course, are a little younger now that are doing stuff that you might say was from the era, from Haight Street era, in its heyday. they're picking up on that.
I think you had a kind of a convergence of people with open minds, and however their minds got open, it didn't really matter, but they're open to different kinds of music, different kinds of people, and it showed up in the music.
I think the spirit is just there, that's just the feeling you get when you get a group of people like that all on that one street with the history that's been there. And the people all on that street have a history of having that experience year after year after year after year. So,
and I think that spirit will always be here. It's always going to be looked at as the place that with Haight Ashbury and the Cultural Revolution, LSD, and mind expansion and psychedelic music. Hopefully that will stay a part of San Francisco forever.
I love that I can show up on the Haight any day of the week and know that I'm going to run into one of my friends, and that I can sit down and play a guitar and I know that eventually one of my friends is going to show up and start playing one of their guitars with me.
So the music just keeps coming?
Hell yeah, the music is always there.
I think there's still a lot of music, but it's just more either you're here for it and you catch it, or you don't, and it goes by and the world starts spinning again.
Oh, thank you so much.
So now we're amidst all the legendary houses like the Grateful Dead house and the Hells Angels house and Janis' apartment, their house down there, and Henry's apartment down there. So what do you think, TC? What's different now?
Back in the day, there were all kinds of shops up and down the street where you can get all kinds of clothing, the print mint, you can get the poster art was for sale, lots of stuff, recordings. There's still a little bit of that. But back then, somehow, the colors were more vivid. They were brighter. You saw the reds, the oranges, the greens, the purples. Now they're a bit more subdued. You see more beiges, lavenders. And it's an indication of the mood, how it's a little bit more restrained. Whereas then, it was just opening into the street, and that's what people came to see.
The Haight of today is a neighborhood struggling to determine its identity. Tourist destination? Hippie mecca?
Patches, all your favorite patches.
Activist enclave?
To kick off this new summer of love.
Or just a neighborhood?
And the more true and the more pure you get to that idea of diversity and plurality and the true melting pot, the closer you get to what the Haight is. And as you start diluting the idea, you basically end up with communist China or Cuba, on the other extreme.
The Haight now seems to have a certain kind of positive, thriving entity. It seems like there's lots of businesses happening. There's this whole tourist thing, which is when you see it, is kind of surprising, but it's cool.
There's still some vestiges of a hippie scene there. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know that were hippies back then who still live there. Still live in the area. Not as many as there was in 1967 and 68. There's no buses going down the street with a guy from the Gray Line tour there. I know you're arrested a real hippie over here. Can you say hello to the hippie? No, wait for it.
It's home, and I enjoy the Haight. This is home. This is where I grew up. This is the people that It's just a great place to be. A lot of history, a lot of good thoughts.
It still has legs, which is good for me. I never dreamed I'd have a career that would last this long. It's incredible.
It's just a change in the times. Everyone came here to give something back. Most everybody comes here now to take something with them. There's a difference.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now pay me.
What I saw in the Haight Ashbury and what I see is kind of the same thing I see when I look at punk kids, and they're all pierced and they got bones through their noses, and I think they're in pain. And I think that they're showing me how much they're in pain.
The sign, I will take verbal abuse for spare change. Basically, you can yell at me and offend me and anything you want, basically, verbally anyways, and I'll take it for spare change. It's cool.
Why?
It's a way to make money. I'm kind of stuck here, so...
The kids making the pilgrimage to the Haight of today are a varied mix of latter-day hippies and the loitering homeless.
That's what attracts all of these tourists. That's what attracts all of the people that come here and you know, kick down to these kids. That they hear the music and they toss them $5 into their guitar case. I mean, why do you think that they're playing on these streets? This is the birthplace of the peace and love hippie movement.
I think the Haight's probably one of the easiest places to be homeless, and I think that's one of the reasons that most people are here. But the energy exchange that you get is even more so the reason to come here.
These kids come here now and roam the streets because they don't know any other way, but most of them think that they are mirroring the image that went on here in the 60s and 70s. It's not true.
I'm here for the music, the people, the entertainment, I'm fascinated with all these people on bicycles. Everyone rides a bike here. And it's all uphill, like everywhere you go, it's uphill. I wouldn't own a bike here. I don't even like walking uphill. Screw that. So I kind of stay on the Haight because it's flat.
I've found, contrary to popular belief, that there is quite a great deal of responsibility for being in the streets if you're willing to take it. You know, like on this side of the spectrum, you see people all the time. You know, and you can make that choice to spread your love into their life, help them out, or just turn yourself away from them and, you know, and stay reserved and isolated. And it gives me a wonderful opportunity to connect, you know, to stay hopeful, you know, for something better in the world around us.
She's gone.
Did the summer of love bring about change? What can we touch, feel, point to as a lasting success?
Back when we were a bunch of hippies, we could have made a list of all our greatest fears. All of our fears have come to pass. The industrial military machine rules. Greed at the top has ruled for many years, and all the things that we disliked about America and that we tried to run away from in one way or another. With me, it was run into my music. With other people, it was drugs or whatever. They've all come to pass. All of our greatest fears have come to pass. So we sort of already got that behind us.
We were wrong about the politics. We lost every battle. We didn't end capitalism. We didn't end imperialism. We contributed to stopping the war. But on the social cultural front, we won every battle. There's no place in the United States you can't go today where the women's movement doesn't exist, the environmental movement, alternative spiritual practices, alternative medical practices, organic food, the environmental movement, civil liberties issues, they're ubiquitous. And that happened invisibly. And we were the precursors and the progenitors of that.
So most of the public does not know that in the 60s there was this cauldron of ideas here that has had far-reaching impact.
Every once in a while I'll look back and I'll think about that period of time, and I'll realize actually how important it was. And I don't have all the lists of things that happened since that particular time, that have been incorporated into society. But there's a whole bunch of different things, including Earth Day and all the green movement, the consciousness about, I want to say, races and religious.
Those ideas, those feelings we had in the 60s will come to fruition in all these, because there are people scattered around in different industries and in positions of power that I think maybe for a while perhaps sold out a little bit, but there's that seed that was sown in the 60s, and I'm hoping that it finally starts to grow. The collective gestalt of it, the whole thing is what lives on. It isn't over, it isn't dead. The whole collective thing of the 60s and the Haight Ashbury is alive and well throughout the whole entire world.
I think it was the tip of the iceberg opening up, and it might be maybe another 200 years before really everybody understands it, or maybe they'll understand it too late.
I'm here for the truth. Love one another for real. Let's set the captives free.
There's an ongoing debate whether another counterculture movement will ever emerge, or another musical movement is ready to explode on the scene. I think next time people are going to come with guns. The powers that be should have been thanking their lucky stars for the Haight Ashbury, for the Pacific peace, love, and good vibes experiment, but they crushed it.
I think the new manifestation of the Summer of Love will be over the internet, around social movements, and it can happen anytime, any place, in a certain sense, would help the internet version of the Summer of Love help get President Obama elected.
See, we can't see it because we're right in the middle of it. That's the way it was in the 60s. We didn't see it. To us, it was just like, yeah, that's what we're doing. But like later on, not even in the 70s, by when we get to the late 80s and the early 90s, then people start going, you were there when all that shit happened? I go, yeah. And then it starts to become like, that was a pretty far out thing. And I go, now that you mention it, that was pretty cool, And then every decade has had one of those, sparkling moments, I think. I hope this next, season of that the kids learn from the mistakes that we made when we were doing it back in the 60s,
The Summer of Love's greatest contribution hasn't been written yet. It's a work in progress. It can't be defined by a single summer or regarded as a nostalgic hope to be pulled out of the closet and dusted off on anniversaries.
The Summer of Love never ended. And it's always there, bubbling under the surface, and I am often pleasantly surprised at how it bubbles up.
Summer of Love? I don't know. I never lost the Summer of Love. I've had the Summer of Love every summer in my whole life. And I know a lot of people that aren't like that,
One of the fundamental misconceptions about the Haight Ashbury was how serious people were, spiritually and politically. That the quest may have had a lot of wrong turns in it and a lot of mistakes, but the quest itself was absolutely sincere.
What do you do with the memories of the hate? It's the same thing. You use it to pass it on and ignite these younger people with the same feeling, and then you bring it back. We're not going to go out there at 70 years old and bring back the hate. It's the kids 20 years old and 25 that come and say, hey, I think I'll hang out a while. Let's play some music. And that will happen. Because these kids are really into music more than we are. I hate to say it, but that's true. So the spirit's still there.
The Summer of Love taught us that revolution can come at any time, from any city or town, any street corner or intersection, as long as there are people who yearn for change.
I think it's part of our evolution. It requires something to shift the consciousness, and it could always be around the corner, but it happens from time to time. And if you're lucky enough to be on the continuum, go on to the next party.
Oh yeah, it taught us one more thing. If you're gonna have a revolution, make sure you have a hell of a soundtrack to go with it.
Here I sit some 40 years down the line, 40 years ago, when I turned 30, on this street that some called love and some called hate. At the end of that summer they called the 1967, they called the Summer of Love, 1967. And here I am, still up for it, still down for it, still around for it, still going for it. I'm not ready to be in for it now to be yet, saying what a long, strange trip it's been.
There's a lot of history here, but the city, for whatever reasons, are very kind of inhibited about throwing out knowledge. They don't want to put plaques down. They're hesitant about spending some minuscule amount of money to commemorate what happened here 40 years ago, yet people still come here.
And unfortunately, they're disappointed because they want it to be the way it was. And they don't realize it could be, but the difference is them. It's not the hate, it's them. Like I said, the commercialism of Woodstock, it was a commercialism to the hate too that overtook when it was pure.
Some people talk about the bad side of it, 68 riots, Kent State, things like that. There was bad sides of it, of course. But we have the good side of it over here, pretty much.
And the Haight Ashbury is now just a reflection of that exploitation of the history of the Haight Ashbury and the Summer of Love. And it's all now T-shirts and poster stores and hippie paraphernalia kind of stuff.
A lot of even the rock and rollers forgot about the fact that they were trying to, they forgot about what they originally did, and that was uplift young people, get them dancing, get them smiling, get them happy, and forget about some of the stresses that were put on them by the older generation.
But when you felt things ignite, and the sound of the kick drum would ripple. You could see the audience ripple in response to the kick drum as the sound moved through the crowd, and they would feel the downbeat as it moved away. You knew that the whole place was one big organism.
If you were young in that period, if you were 15 to 25 like I was, and you were fortunate enough to be in San Francisco, it was the whole thing was cool. I didn't have anything ugly happen to me in the 60s. I know some people did.
And so I suppose it was interesting, so people would come to look at it. How did it actually really change everything? Not as much as we wanted, but it certainly did change it. Or else we wouldn't be here.
As people, as artists, as creative forces, their legacy, yeah, that's wonderful. They left wonderful things. Recordings, photographs, artwork, that's wonderful. But mainly I remember them as people.
The street itself, though, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to... I think it'll always kind of be the same. It really is pretty much the same as it ever was. I hope that the kids find something to do. I wish someone would start some more psychedelic bands and do some more free concerts.
The reason those things happened, the Summer of Love and Woodstock, was because they hadn't happened before. And once it happens one time, that's it. There's not really a way to recreate that experience. Lord knows they have tried.
I think that you're going to see a religious war finally break down around between those people that consider the environment and the planet sacred, and those people that consider shopping sacred.
I can't even believe that any political system would still continue to ignore this economy. They're talking about we ain't got any money, the budget's, we're dry. Well, why don't you buy Maybelline makeup, man? Those guys make $22 billion a year selling lipstick. You know what I mean? Get it going, you know?
To me, the people that are opposed to healthcare reform and healthcare as a right, not a privilege, is the same ideology that tried to close our clinic in '67.
The whole conservative movement in the United States, which has gone on for like ever since the 60s, is still a clinging to the past, a clinging to the old concepts of World War II.
But look, you just look at us as a species, and we're still fighting. There's wars everywhere, and blowing, and we can't, and we're going to blow ourselves up and destroy our life support systems if we're not careful. And that's not very bright. That's not very smart. Collectively as a species, but but keep hope, because I think we will get through it.
I say we're going to win. We're going to win in the end, and this other evil stuff and all these greedy people and everything are going to find that their hollow, shallow lives are just that.
Now where you say, well, we should be creative. We should do something creative. Well, then you didn't even think that. It was just, it was all over the place.
Robert Browning has a poem, and I can never remember it exactly, and he was talking about the French Revolution, and he said, to be alive then was great, but to be young was pure heaven. And that describes how I feel about that, because it was an intuitive kind of magic time when something was going on, but nobody knew what it was.